The Imbacucha Valley, at the foot of the Ecuadorian Andes. It's an area with a high proportion of indigenous people. Here, legend and tradition are part of everyday life.
The volcano's name is Imbabura. We call it Taita Imbabura. The mountains are a family, like human beings. That one's the father, who watches over everything, and the mother is Cotacachi, opposite. And there are child mountains too, they're just like a human family. Our grandparents had great respect for the mountains. They would ask Taita Imbabura, or Mama Anaurco, or Mama Cotacachi, to come to their aid and bring them a good harvest.
Roberto and Imbaya are indigenous Quechuas who are working here as United Nations volunteers on a cultural and nature conservation project for the San Pablo Lake region. It's called the Randy Randy project, which means working together to help each other. Randy Randy has a wide range of support, including the Centro de Estudios Pluriculturales and the United Nations Development Programme. The Imbacucha region is poor, and subsistence farming is the main activity here. Many local people have left the area because of problems such as soil erosion, environmental pollution and lack of jobs. These problems hit the indigenous people hardest. Roberto Tocagon loves his land. He makes a living from a little patch of earth he cultivates with his family. As a UNV, he is able to share his experience and cultural knowledge with the poorest rural communities in the area. Together they are working to break the vicious circle of poverty. Communication is an important part of Roberto's work.
Atención, se les comunica a los compañeros dirigentes de esta comunidad para que acompañen a la compañera.
Ingenuity is needed to get the message across to people who live in scattered communities. Visiting neighbours or using a megaphone are just some ways of doing so. Roberto's day begins early and ends late. He has been chosen by the villagers as a leader to organise the community activities.
My work is to be a coordinator, to motivate the people, to make sure that the information reaches them. I share my knowledge with them. We're working together as a community. It's only through this effort, through working together and by organizing the whole community, that we've been able to do things like building these roads, for example.
A sense of community and collectivity are at the heart of the indigenous culture here. Every activity involves a meeting, explanation, and sometimes lengthy discussions before an agreement is reached, involving everyone in the final decision, a tradition the Randy Randy project builds on. Reviving traditions that have fallen into disuse is a project priority. An old custom of the villagers here was to work one day a week on behalf of the community. The women have now agreed to grow vegetables together to improve the nutrition of their children. With Roberto's help, they're learning to use traditional techniques that had almost been forgotten.
Usually, once the children have finished primary school, they go. They leave for the cities or they find work in the flower nurseries. Little by little, the traditional ways of doing things by working collectively have been forgotten. But now we're trying to bring back the knowledge of our forefathers so that our children will once again be able to work our land. Here we're helping the community to set up a nursery.
What are the proportions of earth, sand and compost?
That's the question I'm asking.
3 parts earth, 3 parts sand and 4 parts compost. And here I don't know.
That could be compost, that could be humus. The compost mustn't be too fresh, you have to bear that in mind.
In a setting where the role of women is often undermined, initiatives like this are very important. They rebuild the women's confidence, helping them realize their capabilities and feel more independent.
Before, when we didn't have family vegetable gardens like this, we had to buy everything we needed in the village. Now we don't have to do that anymore. We have everything we need here. It's a help for us because our husband's earnings aren't enough for us to live on.
Another area where local culture has considerable knowledge is in the use of medicinal plants.
This is chera, this is coriander, this is peppermint, barley, guanachayo, chamomile. Here we have flax seeds, turnips. This is a plant called jicama, mint, alfalfa.
Who taught you all this?
Ourselves. We found out. We went from house to house and we asked the older people to tell us about each plant. We want to know which ones have medicinal powers and which ones have a negative effect.
We in the indigenous world, we believe we know that our Mother the Earth is alive, just like a human being. If I don't eat for 2 or 3 days, then I become weaker and I won't be strong enough to do my work. Well, it's the same for our Mother Earth. She needs food. That's why we feed her with fertilizer, so that she gives us good fruit.
A poner el abono en la madre tierra. Estamos alimentando para que ella dé buenos frutos, ¿no?
16 United Nations volunteers work on this, including a number of women. Covering 21 rural communities, half the volunteers are indigenous people from this area. This approach with mixed teams is working well because it's proving to be an excellent way of integrating new techniques with traditional knowledge. Today it's the start of an important Quechua festival, the Pusar Raimi, the Flower Festival, which celebrates the power of the forces of nature over everything. It's an ancient festival, but it's moved with the times.
Anunciamos los siguientes partidos. El segundo partido será Barcelona.
The celebrations start this Sunday with what is called, rather grandly, the World Indigenous Football Championships. But Roberto and his UNV friends will also observe the traditional Festival of Flowers, a more intimate affair. Here, tradition is commemorated with tolerance and solidarity, the same values that have founded the Randy Randy project.